Yeah. Okay, cool.
Maybe.
I think we're all good.
All right.
Awesome. Making sure that's all good.
Very, very cool setup. You got that?
I know, right? I feel so
All right.
professional. Here we are in our morning show, right?
That's right.
That's
The Mike and
Yeah.
Stacy show.
That's right, yeah.
I'm loving it.
Friday mornings with Nerby and
They
Stacy.
designed these coffee cups wrong because it should be showing
Oh, yeah.
Polycomp
We need to
this
drink them
way.
like this
They have
right here.
left-handed challenge.
As you can
Okay.
see, Polycomp.
Polycomp.
I love it. Okay, so welcome to Nerby SnapShot. And today I have a very special guest with me. I'm so happy that you did this. Thank you.
No problem.
And Stacy Sheetz with Polycomp. And Nerby SnapShot, we like to not only invite local businesses here in the Sacramento area, but specifically we like talking with people who are real estate oriented. And today we have a really kind of special case that I use personally, that I got introduced to about 2 years ago. And it's this concept of self-directed IRAs and 401ks. And we'll just kind of dive into that. So
Definitely.
first things first, when someone asks you what you do, how do you answer?
It is such a difficult question, but it's a great answer, and I've tried to perfect this. I tell them that I work with investors who want to use their retirement funds to do exactly what they're doing outside of using retirement funds to invest.
Okay.
Most investors are buying rental properties, they're investing in different types of LPs or LLC interests, they loan their money out, they're private lenders, but they've never thought of actually using that same strategy inside of their retirement account.
Yeah, wow.
So it's really, the key word is I work with investors because investors already know what they're doing. They
Right.
already have investment opportunities, use their retirement accounts to do what they're already doing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's how I
I
have to
remember
answer
meeting
that.
you 2 years ago, and you had mentioned this concept. Well, you always give your spiel up at the front of the club.
Right.
And that kind of piqued my interest because for the longest time I had only thought you could only use cash or your reserves, and your retirement account was, for the lack of a better, reserved only for the stock market. So.
And you are not alone.
Yeah.
I cannot even begin to tell you how many people feel the same. Nobody thinks about it, and
Right.
they only know what they know, and they've been told to save.
Mhm.
They've been told to do a retirement. Their options they've only known are stock, bonds, and mutual funds, and they get to deliver a certain percentage to each one of those, and they feel very empowered.
Right.
But the second they learn that they can do other investments,
Wow.
game on.
I love it. So more on a personal side. So how did you get started in this space, or kind of what's the origin story here, getting involved with Polycomp?
Right, there's nothing very exciting about the fact of me kind of falling into this industry. I had been in the nurse staffing industry for a very long time,
Okay.
helping local hospitals with their staffing shortages and putting nurses in hospitals for 13-week travel assignments.
Okay.
So very different from where I am now.
Right.
And there was a lot of mergers and acquisitions going on in that space, and I ended up starting to look for a job because I was part of a merger and acquisition. I was getting paid more than they wanted to pay me when they took over.
Typical story.
Right.
With the mergers.
So my mother-in-law is like, hey, you might want to talk to Donna, who's the owner of Polycomp.
Got it.
And I did some research, and I'm thinking, I know nothing about any of this. Why would Donna want to talk to me? But I then started to think a little bit further outside of my narrow thinking, and thought, well, maybe Donna knows somebody that might need somebody like me. So it might be worth the introduction. And it just took off from there. And
Wow.
she introduced me to a sales coach, and we had an interview for, I think it was a 3-hour interview.
Wow.
And I ended up getting the job, and it's one of the best things I've ever done. It's so great because nobody knows about it.
Right.
And I don't know the whole investment side of it, so I'm learning a whole bunch of different strategies that investors use. It's just a win-win.
That's great.
Yeah, I really like my job. It's very exciting.
I can tell. Like, every time you're at the club, like you talk so highly of Polycomp, And you always have a huge smile on your face, so I can tell that like you really love what you're doing.
It is. It's really a great. It's a
and
great gig.
It makes it easy to work with too.
Right.
When someone's enjoying what they're doing.
Right.
So, what is Polycomp, and what do they do?
Polycomp is a third-party administrator. So.
And what does that mean?
We take care of making sure that the transactions that are happening here are in compliance with the IRS rules and regulations.
Got it.
We don't do any investment advice. We don't do any legal advice, any accounting or tax advice. We help people, investors, not make good decisions, but not get themselves into trouble by investing in maybe a transaction that could be considered prohibited.
Got it. Okay.
And then we'll do the annual tax reporting for these individuals on, I think it's a 5498 and a 1099-R.
Okay.
It happens for all of our clients, and we hold title to their assets for them as the custodian.
Got it. So Polycomp, so you said it's a third-party administrator?
Right. Some people say TPA.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
There you go.
Oh, you guys are TPA, and I'm thinking, what's a TPA? Yeah, I guess we are.
Yeah, there's acronyms in
right.
every industry, even just IRA, or you know what I mean. Like there's so many little acronyms.
It's true.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up. So third-party administrator, and their key functions you kind of mentioned there. So you're holding title, you're making sure we're in compliance with the IRS.
That's right.
Is there any other key components, or?
I think, the maybe on the contributions and distributions side of a retirement account, when you have a retirement account, depending on the qualifications, you could do annual contributions. At a certain age, depending on the type of account, you're doing distributions. Mm-hmm. We do all the reporting on that. Okay. And depending on the type of account, we would make sure that they're doing the right amount of dollars.
Got it. So what's the difference then between Polycomp and say like Charles Schwab?
Oh, that's a great question. We are very much the same and the exact opposite.
Oh, okay.
all at the same time.
How so?
We allow individuals to use their retirement accounts for investments. The Charles Schwabs and Vanguards of the world, Fidelities of the world, have certain products that they offer to their clients that can be used for stock, bonds, and mutual funds. It's all traded, publicly traded stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. Mm-hmm. Polycomp does none of that. We hold none of that. Everything is outside of the traditional market. And our custodian holds title to real estate, title to notes, title to interests in LP or LLCs. We have some precious metal investors.
Wow.
A lot of people are kind of getting into this cryptocurrency. You're young enough to probably even have your own crypto account. And so we have a lot of investors that are interested in doing cryptocurrency with their retirement accounts, and we're helping them with that as well.
Okay, so Charles Schwab's helps you with those traditional bonds, stocks, things like that. You can think maybe New York Stock Exchange items. Right. And then you listed off a couple of that Polycomp. So what are the other categories? I heard precious metals. What else can you invest your retirement funds into?
The list is so long, Michael. Okay. Really, what I should tell you are the 3 things you can't invest in, because you can become as creative as you want with your retirement funds. The 3 things you can't invest in are life insurance policies, S corporation stock. You can loan your money to an S corporation, but you can't have your IRA be a stock member, and collectibles. Okay. So stamp collections, wine collections are out.
Darn.
Shucks.
Darn. Dang it.
Art's out.
Art's out. Okay.
Yeah. Rugs.
Any sort of collectibles.
Antiques.
Okay.
Automobile collection.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And so when someone says, hey, I have a 401k with the company that I work for, and they match it and things like that.
Right.
So what do you say to them? As, maybe they're motivated to keep their money there because they feel like they're getting free money from the company.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody like that?
A lot of people who are contributing to a 401k with their current employer are unable to touch the money.
Got it.
Unless they rolled money over from a previous employer, those monies might be available to them, but the monies that they're currently contributing and their employer is matching are usually not available to them unless they're 59 and a half or older, and each qualified plan has its own document. If their document says that they can do an in-service distribution, they may allow them to take some or all of that money and do a rollover. Mm-hmm. But 9 times out of 10, when you're working there, that's what you're contributing to, that's what they're matching, mm-hmm. and you can't really touch it until you're no longer working. As a matter of fact, one guy last week, he's like, I think I'm going to just quit my job. Because I want my money.
So he can roll it over. That's great. I love it.
I'm like, buddy, you should try to, you might want to think about that a little bit longer.
Yeah, let's think this out a little bit. That's hilarious. So just as the basics, so, what are some of the different retirement accounts out there?
Good question. We have self-directed IRAs. There's the traditional, there's the Roth, there's the SEP, which is an excellent type of vehicle for people who are making a lot of money and want to do higher contributions. And there is the inherited IRA. If somebody inherits an IRA, they can use that and do self-directing. It would be classified as an inherited IRA, but they can also do non-traditional investments in it. So we hold all 4 of those. Okay.
And do you have like a, just like a 30,000 foot view of each of those? Like what is a SEP? What is a
Right. Good question.
Is there a way to look at it?
There is. The traditional and the SEP are very much the same type of account. Those are accounts where you typically get some type of a tax deduction based off of what you've contributed that year. And when you do distributions on those types of accounts, that's when you will get taxed as an individual. And at 70 and a half, you're required to take distributions on those accounts.
On the traditional and the SEP.
On the traditional and the SEP. Those and the inherited, depending on whether it's a traditional or a SEP inherited, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So they serve a purpose. A lot of people have a lot of money in traditional IRAs. Typically, it's rollover money from 401ks where companies have allowed the employee to contribute, and then there's the match, and then it rolls over and it's classified as a traditional. Just recently, a lot of companies are starting to offer more of a Roth component. The Roth is an IRA that you can do contributions with after-tax money. So you've already gotten your paycheck, you've been paid, you've paid your taxes on it, and you put this extra lump of money, $5,500 to $6,500 a year, into a Roth. There are income limits, so people who are high net worth individuals or making 6 figures or more, they may not qualify. But you can always do a Roth conversion with your traditional. Keep that in mind. People do put little chunks in there every year. And the reason why they do that is because on the distribution side of it, when you turn 70 and a half, there's no requirement that you have to start taking your money.
That's great.
So as long as you've had that account for 5 years or longer, a Roth account for 5 years or longer, you could take whatever amount you want, distribute it to you, and you pay no taxes on it. So it's a really nice vehicle for a lot of people because a lot of people think taxes will probably go up.
Yeah.
They might be right.
Yeah, exactly right. It's going to be hard for them to go down, that's for sure.
I don't know. It's a tough call. It's a roll of the dice. But
and there's a lot of changes right now.
There are a lot of changes.
And are those changes affecting your business at all?
We'll see. Every day there's things that happen. I know one of the most recent changes was the 12-month rollover process where people were able to take their money out for 60 days and do whatever they did. They probably do an investment with it and then put it back. Well, they were pulling from all sorts of places and they were doing all sorts of fancy things and they put the kibosh on that. So now you can do that once every 12 months.
Got it.
That's it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what's kind of the biggest misconception that you deal with in the IRA space or the self-directed space? Is there a misconception out there from investors that? That's
a great question. You're very well prepared. I gotta give you some credit. I would say that it is so. A lot of people don't know about this, and we have heard things come back to us where people have said, I heard this is illegal.
Wow.
Well, it's not illegal. It's part of the tax code.
Right.
It's
you wouldn't have a job.
Right, and I wouldn't have a job. In 1974 is when the ERISA came out, and that's when all the tax code was written. These were accounts to benefit people for their retirement. And a lot of people used to get pensions, and they were well taken care of. They'd have one job their whole life. They'd get a pension. They were done. Right. Well, things have drastically changed. Majorly. Yeah. So in '74, thank goodness, they put the ERISA into place, and people can save for their retirement. And you can invest in just about anything with your IRA, except for those three things I mentioned earlier.
So it seems like almost getting over that hurdle of, is this even real? Is it even legal? And then getting the word out that people can use it.
Right. And then people get so tickled. They get so excited. And you can just see their mind is just rolling. They're thinking, okay, now I'm going to go up and buy that piece of property in Chico so that Johnny Boy can, get all his buddies in there and they can, rent the place out, and this is a win-win.
Right, yeah.
So that the next big hurdle is explaining what the prohibited transactions are.
And that's a great segue, well, before we get there, 2 years ago, that's how I felt, you know what I mean? When we first had a conversation, I was like,
why
wow,
wouldn't you do this?
This is amazing. Yeah.
Everybody.
For me, it was that I had more control over the outcome from the investment, whereas if I were to put it into Vanguard or a mutual fund, it's almost like you're putting it at the will of the market,
right.
And I feel like I have more personal control over the money if I'm self-directing.
You understand it.
But that being said, there are some prohibited transactions, you said. So, what are some things that investors should be aware of to avoid?
That's a really great question. The biggest thing is doing a per se prohibited transaction, and that's where your IRA does a transaction with a disqualified person, and knowing who those disqualified persons are really important. And we use this diagram of the family tree, and I'm sure you've seen it a million times, but in the trunk of the tree sits the IRA owner and their spouse, their immediate ascendants, so parents and grandparents, or descendants, so children or grandchildren. And somebody around here had said, yeah, so if they gave birth to you and you gave birth to them, then those are all off limits. And I'm thinking, that's kind of a disgusting way to think about it, but it's true. That's exactly it. So you can, if you own a piece of property, your IRA would not be allowed to buy that piece of property from you as an IRA, or if your IRA owns a piece of property, your children or parents couldn't live in that property even if they were paying fair market rent.
Got it.
If the property was attached to an HOA situation that had a golf course, and you had a non-disqualified person paying rent and living in the rental, but you were taking advantage of the golf course privileges because of where because the house is, what gives that privilege, that's considered a prohibited transaction.
Wow.
And any entity where 50% of those disqualified persons combined own a company. For example, if my son owned a construction company, even at 50%, that construction company could not do any type of repairs to my IRA-owned property.
They'd be disqualified.
That's right.
Now, are you screening those people, or are you expecting the investors to make the decision?
We are experts when it comes to figuring out whether or not an investor is going to get themselves into hot water. And if for whatever reason it gets clouded, and people are so creative, so they may call and say, okay, I'm doing this and then that and then this, and it gets really muddy very fast. We'll ask them to call an ERISA attorney and get an opinion on the investment. For the most part, they're pretty cut and dry. You can or you can't.
Right.
And we'll advise them. We can't advise them. We would just tell them we can't hold their investment. And we do not want any of our investors getting in trouble.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because if they engage in a prohibited transaction, the whole retirement account gets distributed.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's
I heard
taxed.
people call it like torpedo the account, or
the whole thing gone.
Wow, that's See, something really to avoid.
You do not want to jump into that pond.
No kidding. Especially if you're like many years down the line.
Right.
The IRA's a little bit larger.
Right.
It becomes more and more.
And I think the IRS traces it all the way back to when the prohibited transaction started.
Wow.
So I don't know how they do it, but I know they get you for everything.
The IRS will come for
so
it.
just don't do it.
Yeah, no kidding. So, okay, let's say I've been working at a company for a long time.
Right.
I'm retiring now, and I'm going to roll out my account. I come to Polycomp and you, or maybe I see this video, and you know what I mean, I'm inspired to learn more. Walk me through the process. So
okay, it's a very easy process, and you've been through the process because you are one of our clients.
Go Polycomp.
Yeah, go Polycomp. Even though they think you're too young to be an investor, they actually thought you were my son. I'm like, sure, yeah.
I thought that was so funny.
Are you saying I look old?
Yeah.
I didn't know how to take that. But, it's a 3-step process. They open the account, then they fund the account, and then they fund their investment. Easy. Wow. The biggest mistake is that everybody thinks it's so easy that it can get done overnight, and they really need to give themselves some cushion there before engaging into a transaction. So we normally say 2-3 weeks.
Okay, that's not bad. And then I remember you were kind of my point of contact for a while, and then it seems like there's, the communication is great. Whenever I have a question, I get it answered. So are you assigned like a customer service person, or, how does that back end work?
Right. We have a team approach so that no one individual has to be tied to a rep. If they're out sick, if they're on vacation, that is not going to delay the process. The team behind me, we have an administrative team and an asset team, and the administrative team helps with like online passwords so that you can access your account. They help with transferring monies in, posting to all of the accounts when the monies do come in. The asset team helps individuals with the actual investment. So there's a direction letter that they will prepare for you and have you sign. It's all done electronically, and we never do anything with your money unless you tell us what you want to have done with your money.
Fair enough. And
we need to have your signature confirming that that's really what you want us to do with your money. But we try to really take the time to hold the hands of our investors.
You did a great job. So
well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So an investor has they've done the 2 steps. Now they have done step 3. They found the investment. What do you need from them in order to put this whole thing together?
Right. Good question, and it depends. It depends on what the investment is. If it's a interest in an LP or an LLC, then they're going to want the operating agreement. I believe there's a subscription agreement that needs to come over in the name of their IRA account. If it's a note, a huge portion of our assets are private lending. The note needs to be. We need a copy of the note, and if it's a secured note, we need the security documents.
Got it. Okay.
And if it's a house, then it's the I think it's a couple of steps when it becomes a real piece of property, because there's the earnest money part of it, there's the agreement, the realtors put together like an initial agreement, and then there's the final agreement, and monies are changing a couple of times to make everything happen when it comes to property.
Great. And so who's your ideal client then? Like, who should be using Polycomp, and you know, who?
Everybody should know about this.
There you go. I love it.
When I first started, it was funny because I would talk to anybody and everybody that would listen to me, and I realized that there is a huge portion of our population that have no idea how to go about an investment.
Right.
Although I think everybody wants to do an investment. Everybody wants to be an investor. They don't know how to go about it. They don't have the time to figure it out.
Right.
Real estate agents, property managers, they have this really unique position in our community to educate their clients that could inspire them to do a simple transaction with their retirement account that would create cash flow for them just by simply buying a piece of rental property. And it doesn't have to be in California. It could be anywhere, nationwide.
Right.
I think in Tennessee you could get a house for like $40,000.
Yeah, pretty cheap.
So it's it's black and white from what we have out here in California.
Right.
And then that piece of property generates income back into the retirement account month after month, and it's appreciating hopefully as well, right?
That's right.
So, people know real estate, people understand real estate. It's a really great way to introduce your clients to the fear of an investment. And it's a hands-off type of situation because they work with a property manager. The property manager handles everything. Everything should just be working for them, where they don't even have to think about it after the initial work to get it all set up.
True. So a pulse and a retirement account, that's what qualifies you for Polycomp?
I think you've got it. And actually, you don't even have to have a pulse, because we do the inherited IRS.
There you go. I love it.
That wasn't funny.
That was great. There you go. Again, Polycomp. It's Friday mornings with Michael and Stacy.
Friday morning.
So, as we kind of conclude here, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with, like a last word, or something that maybe we didn't cover, or something you want to leave the audience with? Definitely
call me.
And we'll go over that next. Yeah.
Definitely. And there is a book. It's called the Self-Directed IRA Handbook. Okay, it was written by an ERISA attorney, Matt Sorensen. This is my book. It's highlighted and tagged, and I use it all the time.
Great.
It never gets old. It's a really great resource for anybody that is serious about wanting to look into this.
Great.
There's 3 chapters on prohibited transactions.
3 chapters. Wow. That's great. I'm going to have to look into that.
I know,
I haven't seen that before. Amazon, I'm sure.
Amazon. I think that they print to order, but I think you could also get the downloadable one away. So $10, $15, I don't know, maybe it's $20.
Sure.
That's a great resource. Also, our company has another division on the qualified retirement plan side. So people like yourself, I know we've talked about this a little bit. When you own your own business, or you have a smaller business, even medium-sized businesses as well, a qualified plan can do inside of the business can do everything that a self-directed IRA can do, and so much more.
Oh, wow.
And we have consultants here that help customize plans so that you could be the self-trustee, you're doing your investments, you're doing everything that you would be doing inside of a self-directed IRA, and then there's like 6 other great perks on why you might want to go down that road as opposed to you could do both. Right? But there are some serious perks on being able to use your benefit of the business and do the same thing that you would do
Wow.
Self-directed
The
IRA.
point is call Stacy.
Call me.
Yeah.
That's the big point.
Yeah. So then that leads me to how do we get a hold of Polycomp? How do we get a hold of you?
Right.
Let's say I have further questions, or I watched the video, I'm inspired, I want to go and take action.
You would think that I'd know my own telephone number,
Yeah.
but I don't.
Oh, there you go. Good. You have it.
I do, but this isn't even the right one. So you would call Polycomp 916-773-3480. I do have a direct line. I have a LinkedIn account. You can definitely find me on LinkedIn.
Great.
You can.
In the comments, I can leave your number.
Oh, perfect. Yeah,
If
and then
that's
a
okay
link.
with you.
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I'll send you a link to all of our videos. They're
Perfect.
educational videos. You'll be really sick of my voice by the time you watch this and the videos.
Nice, I love it. Cool. Well, I just got to say, I really appreciate you taking the
Oh,
time.
you're so welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely like it. Okay, mornings with Mike and Stacy.
Yeah, there you go.
Cheers.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, God. Just end the
I think the
video
coffee got a little cold.
here. It did a little bit here.
How do we do on